This video is to show you where anger is rooted, its foundation, so you can have some power and leverage to break the addiction to anger. If anger is a problem in your life, like it is for so many of us, this is must-know information. When you know this, it will give you proven pathways out of anger because you will see what keeps you locked into anger. This will free you from anger controlling your life and wasting your precious time and energy. If not, anger can rule your life, keeping you trapped in an endless cycle of feeling frustration, hatred, fear, low energy, and even more anger. So if you want to know the full download, keep watching till the end. Hi, it's Melanie from Serene Awareness, a channel where we help you manifest the life you really want. Real quick, if you like this video, hit the like and share button and also hit that notification button. It really helps the channel out. Thanks. Okay, so let's dive into this much needed discussion on anger. First, understand that if we have a habit of anger, it will take some time to unlearn the habit of anger. So let's have some patience for ourselves. There are three areas I want to talk about. The first is how we look at things, our general perspective. The second is letting go and how do we become the winner in the situation. And the third is upgrading our general lifestyle. So let's dive in. So when I say perspective, I'm talking about how are you looking at the situation, the frame you have around the situation, the story you're telling yourself about the situation, and generally how are you interpreting the situation in your mind, right? From your own lens. The problem is we feel wronged, we feel treated unfairly, we feel insulted, we feel taken advantage of, hurt, we feel we have to take it upon ourselves to make things right for ourselves when we feel anger. The real problem is that anger is a deep-rooted reaction that has been left untrained by our education, our parents, our family, even our friends, and our environment, which then takes control of us in very negative and detrimental ways in our lives. When anger takes us over, we're no longer in control. We have essentially lost ourselves. Once anger takes hold of us, it attracts other emotionalized anger-like thoughts. And pretty soon, we are angry for hours or most of the day, and sometimes most of our lives. So this is huge. And this is by far one of the most destructive emotions inwardly and outwardly, because anger is a habit we have picked up as an auto response. So one of the most powerful solutions I've found is to break out of the me, I perspective, to not take everything so personally, because there are so many variables in this world that are out of our control, and that's okay. People do random unconscious things all the time. However, we can allow ourselves to bring in more awareness, to relieve the responsibility. Are you ready for me to tell you something that will shock you? We can only be responsible for ourselves, and that is our sole responsibility. We are not here to be responsible for how others think and behave. That's on them. So how we look at any given situation greatly influences its outcome. Realizing that being in the flight angry response only keeps us angry. We really need to get this, so let me break it down. The more we have the tendency to take things personally and to look at everything personally, like it was directly and specifically to us, the more likely we are to be angry. So let's look at what this angry perspective is made of. The angry perspective has these four views or components. One is, I was wronged. Two, this should not happen to me. I do not deserve this. 3, they intended to do this and they didn't think about how it would affect me. 4 is I'm not going to let them get away with this. I'm going to get even. So if you're looking at any given situation that has any of these 4 views or components, you're almost guaranteed to get angry. But I invite you to look at anger from as many different perspectives as you possibly can. Sometimes other people just behave unconsciously, and it's not purposefully or directed specifically at you, and they go about their day not even thinking about you having a reaction to something they did. So in that way alone, you can see how like your perspective on a situation that makes you angry, you know, had nothing to do with someone else's perspective. Sometimes people just act unconsciously and it's not intended to be directed at you. And then you get upset and carry that anger with you, and the other person is completely unaffected or unaware that they even caused you to have a negative reaction or to be angry. So that's kind of like a lose-lose situation. Sometimes a person will act out in a negative way and does something bad, and it's just because they're having a bad day. It's not directed towards you. There's probably so much background information you don't know, but that's like, this is where you step back and you recognize that you're in control of yourself and your own path, and you recognize that you need to take control of yourself, and that's your own responsibility in a way. So it's kind of like you recognize, like, not take someone else's actions personally and just safeguard yourself in a way. So you step back and you recognize your path of control is your own responsibility to yourself, and not letting other people take that away from you. If you find yourself already feeling angry, it's going to be a little more challenging to access the perspective and look at things differently, like I'm speaking to right here. So what you want to be able to do is find a practice that calms you down first, and then you can come back into this area of looking at things from different point of views. So some of the things I like to do is that helps if you're feeling already in the anger states is I like to, you can take a hot shower or cold shower whenever you can. And also something kinetic, I like hitting the ball on the tennis court, or you can just go for a walk, a brisk walk or something like that, whenever you have the time to do so, as quickly as you possibly can, because that's going to help you release the anger. And the quicker you release the anger, you can come back into a place where you feel more centered, back into yourself, okay? And not take things as personally, because you aren't going to be in the anger states. So there are several ways in which you can see how we tend to take things personally when we shouldn't actually take things personally. So for example, have you ever been upset and angry at someone and then you said something really mean to them because they're not acting the way you want them to act in that given moment? And then later you found out that that person was really going through a really rough time, or was dealing with really sad news or something, you know, not good. And then you kind of felt bad afterwards, right? That's happened to, I think, all of us. So we're active participants of anger sometimes, and we don't even know it. So this allows us to see that there are different perspectives on other sides, and not just looking at it from our, you know, one perspective view. You know, it's not intentional sometimes. And that brings a lot of compassion in as well. The point is, there are any number of perspectives or ways of looking at a situation or occurrence that doesn't take it personally. But when you bring in these different point of views, you can see and arrive at a place within you that sees that other people were suffering too. And when you were experiencing those 4 views I mentioned above. The goal here is to allow a space for these different perspectives so that you don't hold on to anger. It's also highly worth mentioning how spiritual practices deal with anger. You may or may not be a religious person, but regardless if you are or aren't, it's worth looking at how people with a spiritual practice deal with anger and not allow anger to rule their lives. So generally speaking, spiritual practices take the perspective that the universe, the divine, God, source, whatever it is you believe in, something that you anchor into, will take care of the injustices you have faced if you were truly wronged. It will take care of it in an ultimate sense, so they don't worry about it. They don't worry about making things right or getting even or getting revenge or anything like that. They generally have the perspective that if they were wronged, that the universe will be just in taking care of that. They trust that, and it brings them peace. They trust that the universe will make things right against whoever or whatever wronged them. And so they are able to just take that perspective and be with peace at that, and not be responsible for the other person's actions. They take the perspective that all things that happen to them will make them stronger and have them move into their most powerful lives, their greatest growth, their ideal manifestations, even if they are not able to see it in that very moment. The more you have the tendency to look at things from a spiritual perspective, like the universe handles all injustices and God works through you, the less likely you are to feed into anger. The less likely anger will rule you. So in the first area, we're working a lot on not taking things personally as best as we can. So the next area is letting go. And in letting go, you are becoming the winner of your situation. So you really want you to understand that, because you're not letting anger rule you and control your life and robbing you of your energy and precious time. So letting go. I know so many people whose lives have been ruined by anger. They ruin their relationships, they ruin their successes, they ruin entire lives. Believe me, when you choose to let go, you're choosing to be the winner for yourself. Remember this when you catch yourself in a negative reaction or starting to get angry. Just remember this. So really catching ourselves when we start to feel anger or negative thinking or negative emotions, we want to catch ourselves here. The secret is to not feed into it. Do not feed into this at all, because the more we feed into negative thoughts and negative thinking, the more likely it is to attract other thoughts like that. And then pretty soon you are in full-on anger. Don't let your mind replay the event over and over again. Don't let your mind replay the scenarios over and over again. That only keeps you in the state of anger. We want to let go and redirect the mind so that we are kind of interrupting the mind from replaying the events that cause us to be angry. We don't typically pull back and see that we have a power within us that we can interrupt when we're starting to feel angry, deliberately interrupting the mind and the emotional thoughts that go with it that wants to keep us in a state of being angry. So we need to understand that we can pull back and we can stop being a participant in it, because we know that, if we do, that there is a bigger payoff at the end instead of going down that road of anger. In this area of letting go, we are deliberately interrupting the pattern of the anger-like thoughts so that we are de-escalating anger instead of fueling the anger by having other emotionalized thoughts like it. So let's say, for example, you're driving and someone cuts you off. One path is you immediately recognize your anger response and you begin to de-escalate it, interrupt it, and center yourself in whatever way works for you. For example, I like doing a mantra or affirmations, or I would hum or sing a favorite song, anything that would interrupt the anger from becoming more anger. These are great, effective ways to recenter yourself. So the angry path is like you fixating on the incident and you just become narrow focused on it, and it's all you think about. And pretty soon you are thinking about more angry thoughts and then thinking about everything that makes you angry in your life. The car cutting you off drives an emotionalized thought, which then brings in more emotionalized thoughts like that, anger-like thoughts. And pretty soon we are letting anger rule us. We want to be choosing the paths that are going to help us to not let anger rule us. So that means when emotionalized thoughts come up, we are starting to de-escalate those, interrupt those, deliberately, so that it is not ruling us. If you stay in the angry state, you are basically ruining your day, ruining your life. Whereas if you take a step back and choose to let it go, you're choosing a path that can ultimately help you in your life. When you let go, you're choosing a path that has a bigger payoff for you, and it's not wasting your precious time and energy. Now, that's not always easy, right? So again, this is a practice. Now, I understand it's unrealistic to think that anyone cannot have a negative thought, but it's completely realistic and possible to make the realization and commitment that when you catch yourself having or being in a negative thought, that you will stop it immediately, that you will stop feeding it, because negative thinking requires us to have negative responses and negative reactions to keep perpetuating it. If we don't feed into the anger and we don't feed into the negativity, then it loses its momentum and it will stop. If you have to do this once to let go, fine, you do it once. If you have to do it 100 times, fine, you do it 100 times. If you have to do it 1,000 times, then you do it 1,000 times, because you know the payoff is much better than having anger rule your life. What's important is that you let go and you don't feed into anger and the negative thinking. That's the way we will break out of the habit of anger and negative thinking. And finally, we're here to the last part, which is upgrading our lifestyle. So I like to think of this as we are equipping ourselves, giving ourselves some cushion, extra layers before we actually get to that reactive anger states. Because when we feel good, it is less likely to get angry. So in lifestyle, we're actually stacking a lot of odds in our favor to help us. If we have a lifestyle that supports us in feeling healthy, peaceful, calm, good, then it's less likely that we'll fall into these anger states. The opposite is true as well. If we don't feel good in our body and mind, if we're not getting enough sleep or enough exercise and having a good diet and all of these things. So all of this interplays with each other, because we can see how having a balanced lifestyle can help us to not fall into anger as much, because it gives us this cushioning. So let the motivator of eating right, exercising regularly, even walking, getting enough sleep, and taking care of your body, mind, doing something that takes care of your mind, like meditation. It can be gardening or working in the yard, or just whatever it is you like to do that just puts your mind at ease. This is something that changes your lifestyle to lessen anger ruling our lives. Just because you have that. You might not like doing these things that I'm talking about, but you will love how you feel after having good sleep, good nutrition, getting some regular movement in your life. Exercising is so great. Getting outdoors, being in nature, any of these things can be so helpful in your lifestyle, in shifting that, upgrading that lifestyle. A lot of us are so sedimentary right now, so it's so great if we can actually upgrade our lifestyles. The problem is that we live in a world where we're constantly bombarded by negative news and being on overly dramatic social media, and all of this is like so negative, and we're also kind of more stationary now in our lifestyles, and there's so much going on around us that we need to find a way to balance our lifestyle and upgrade our lifestyle to match the time that we're living in, and a lot of us aren't doing that. So this is why I talk about upgrading our lifestyle, because I think it's so key, and there are just some little tweaks we need to do. The real problem is that we have a lifestyle that actually pulls us into feeling bad most of the time, and we develop habits that we do that don't end up feeling good afterwards. So a lot of people will spend a lot of time on social media, and then they end up feeling really bad after being on social media, but they continue to be on social media. So this is why I'm saying, like, check in. How do you feel after you interact with something, and just like make a call, like, okay, this doesn't feel good to me. So the solution here that I'm talking about is shifting our lifestyle, feeling good inside, like having good healthy diet, exercising regularly. Like I said, walking is fine, getting enough sleep, making sure that you're not engaging with things that are so negative, like the news or the social media, being sucked into those platforms that are just draining your energy. Being aware of this, because ultimately, we have to take care of our lifestyle. We have to take care of our minds, our bodies, because it will see us through. So this is so key, and let this be your motivator. If you are engaging with things that are pulling and dragging your energy down, then that's not actually going to be good for you. So, also limiting drugs and alcohol and smoking, those create a lot of toxins as well in our bodies. So we want to be conscientious of that. Seriously limiting social media. These are all going to be supportive in helping your body, mind, so that you don't have angry reactions as much. Essentially giving you a lot of power and leverage. So remember, it takes some active practice to shift out of the habit of anger. But this can happen very quickly for you, especially if you have the intent. So remember, this isn't an overnight fix. It will take some time to practice, especially if you bring an active intent to let go of anger and break the habit of having anger rule your life. So I hope this was beneficial to you all, and that you will practice this and realize that anger doesn't have to rule your life. Leave me your comments below. I love to hear from all of you. I like to know what's working, and I try to read all of your comments. So post them below, and I wish you a great day or night.